Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday morning live stream. We will give it a little more time for people to get in here. What's going on, Mark? Mark, we got two Marks. What's up, Mark and Mark? Marky Mark. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Saturday morning live stream. We got an interesting and fun guest here today. We're going to talk specifically about just all reefing today. I know we talk about a lot of reef automation stuff. We'll talk about automation, but we're going to talk a little bit about reefing, which is really cool. It's been a little while since I was on. I was on vacation last week. I was at the Georgia Aquarium, if you guys don't know that. And I went scuba diving with whale sharks, and it was the most amazing experience of my life. By far the most amazing experience of my life. If anybody is a scuba diver out there and hasn't had a chance, it's a really easy dive. It's all, confined. You don't have to worry about ocean or anything, and you just jump in with the sharks. So yeah, it was phenomenal. It was a lot of fun. But what was I going to say? Yeah, so hopefully the winners of the 2 weeks ago got their win. I think we sent out some VCA SPS kits, so hopefully you guys got your kits by now. I think you should have. I think I shipped them out on Monday, so you should have them by now. What's going on, TJ, Philly, Matt, Rob, Jim, all the fun people that we have in. Let's see, what was I gonna? Yeah. So again, we will discuss a little bit about my website again, just to give you guys a heads up. Again, I have a website, reefautomation.net, where I'm selling Neptune product and also, my swag like this guy and some other things. So if you are interested in Neptune product, I can tell you that I get a lot of the Neptune product that's out of stock sometimes in some of the other bigger places because I'm here closer to California, so I'm able to get their stuff a little quicker sometimes. So, if you guys ever needed a Neptune product, of course, let me know. Without further ado, we're going to let our guest in today. For those that don't know him, he's a big reefer in, hopefully I get this right, in New York City. And big in the hobby, and he's been on a couple other streams before. First time caller on my stream. Without further ado, I'm going to welcome in Oral. Oral, what's going on, my man?
Hey, how you doing? How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. So to get started, just tell us a little bit about yourself. I always like to get to know my new guests. So tell us a little bit about yourself, what you got you into reefing, and all that fun stuff.
All right. So I'm sorry. When you were talking about the Georgia Aquarium your vacation, I pulled up a screen and I was looking at it. And dude, that must have been so much fun. My gosh. It's
Yeah.
just that scuba diving is something I wanted to get into. So that
Oh, we
looks
could.
like so much fun, man.
Yeah, we could talk about that a little later for sure.
All right.
Absolutely. So
So
my question was, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into reefing, kind of your adventure in reefing, I guess would be the start here.
All right, so I think I've been reefing for about 10 years. It started when my wife and I, we had a young son and, live in an apartment where like we want to get a pet. And I think we decided like a fish tank would be cheaper and easier than a dog. And of course, we know what a mistake that is because it's not cheaper and definitely not easier. But it's been 10 years. Um, I think my tank now, about 75 gallons. My Red Sea Reefer 350 is the biggest tank I've had. I started with like a 20 gallon, 37 gallon. I had a 40 breeder. I've had multiple nano tanks in between. Definitely an equipment junkie. I think pretty much everything up until stuff that was released like in the last year, I've pretty much used and tested. Um, but I'm definitely an equipment junkie, and I like to try new stuff. I think my journey now, I'm trying to do an SPS dominant tank, which I revamped my tank. So the last year it's been mostly SPS. But if you ask me, the best version of my tank I ever had was a Zeovit tank. That
Mm,
was, I think that was an awesome tank. Nice color, no algae. And I think what worked with that is because you were dosing every day. So you were like really in tune with Zeovit. But that's kind of quick synopsis. And yes, I am in Brooklyn, New York.
cool. Is it, I just out of curiosity, is it pretty big in New York, the reefing hobby?
Yes, it is. We have one. Yeah, I would say so. I think when I first started, um, I didn't see a lot of reefers, but yeah, I would say they are. Looking on Instagram and just looking, on Instagram, YouTube, and just talking to people. Yeah, it's absolutely New York, New Jersey, the tri-state area. Yeah, it's big.
Mm. So do a lot of people, well, I've never been to New York. So do a lot of people have large tanks in New York City? I mean, with the apartments and the complex, I mean, do people put large tanks in with, being up in a high rise and so forth?
Yeah, I've seen like in my building once I went down to the basement and the super had like a 180, and he
Wow.
said somebody moved out and left that in their apartment. I mean, I was concerned that my 75 would go through the floor,
Yeah,
and someone had a 180. So um, yeah, like people have big tanks.
that's
Um,
crazy.
there there are a lot of service companies here that service big tanks. So yeah, there are a lot of big tanks here.
Uh, and how do, I mean, again, I'm just asking because I'm curious. How do people get big tanks into these apartment buildings? I mean, I mean, they're not probably that big. They're probably like what, up to 200, I'm assuming most of them.
200, 250. Yeah, you can get it in. Like I think I could get a 250 in my apartment.
Oh,
Um, I think I've seen also where you take out the windows, and I've seen installs where you get a crane and you take out the windows and
oh
you
God.
put the tank through the window. So yeah,
That's awesome. Well, I mean, I know a lot about people like on the outskirts of New York, like in homes and suburb areas that have, ridiculousness. Like Adam Sandler, I think he lives in New York, doesn't he? Or somewhere around there. And again, I'm just guessing. I remember seeing on Tanked, Tracy Morgan has like a gigantic tank. Doesn't he live in the New York area? I think is like
yeah,
18,000.
yeah, you do. There are a lot of. I think when I first joined, I think nano tanks now are a lot more accepted because I think you've heard this before. When you join, people were like, "Get the biggest tank you can. Bigger is more stable." But I'm seeing now some awesome nano tanks. So I think people are getting smaller tanks, which are
Mhm.
a lot nicer, easier to fit in your smaller living space. So
Right.
I am seeing. I don't know if it's because I know more people now, or but I would say reefing is big in New York. We don't. I don't want to say this because I don't think we have. I've been to Southern California before, the Reefapalooza, and they have great fish stores here. I don't think we have the concentration of great fish stores that they
Mhm.
do in like Southern California or like Orlando, where I'm going in a few weeks. I think we could do better in that regard.
I think
Um,
Arizona can too. Trust me.
um,
Um,
I my work office is in Memphis, and I used to travel a lot for work.
mhm.
And I have to say, man, there are some places where could do better with fish stores. Um,
Yes.
could do.
Yes.
One
Without a
more thing to
doubt.
add is we have a huge. I think we have a huge cycle here in New York. It hasn't happened in the last 2 years because I think it's COVID, where, and we mentioned it a little bit in the we were talking before the stream. It's very cyclical, our cycle. Like between the winter and summer, it can be in a 5.5 and 6 hour swing in terms of daylight. So in the summer, man, we want to enjoy the summer. So
Mhm.
a lot of times our tanks get neglected. Sorry, I was getting a call.
It's
Our
okay.
tanks get neglected. So we do have like in the winter, our fish stores are packed. They do a lot of business, and in the
Mhm.
summer, business triples down. You do have like a sell off. So if you're looking for deals, like August, September, when people are finished with vacation and they come back and their tanks are not doing well, there used to be like a huge sell off at the end of summer, but I'm not seeing
Well,
that
it's
the last couple
interesting
of
you
years.
say that. I when I was in Georgia, I was shocked by the daylight cycle there. Like I remember the sun like setting at like 9 o'clock at night, and it was crazy. And I'd never seen that before. Here in Arizona, we got pretty long days too. But where I grew up in Chicago, I remember the days being a lot shorter, and it's really interesting. I just find it interesting. The more north you go, the shorter the days are, and the more south you go, the longer the days are. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's just more consistent. Like it can be dark here at 4:30 or 5 o'clock, like pitch black in the worst of winter. And then in the
Wow.
summer, you can have 9:15. You still have some daylight. So yeah,
Yeah.
we have a huge swing.
So I'm looking at someone had a flood. Oh boy, remediation on a flood that started. Yeah, we've
Ooh,
had some really bad rains and some crazy winds here in Arizona. We had like 75-mile-per-hour winds on a couple of days, like ridiculousness, ridiculousness.
75 miles an hour.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
it's been really rough here. So anyway, cool. Yeah, I've been reefing for a long time. If you don't know, I've been probably doing it for I was about 6 or 7 years old when I had my first tank. I had my first reef tank when I was about 18. I'm almost 40, so you can kind of get an idea of how long I've been doing this. Um, and then, yeah, um, I went to college for computer science engineering. I wanted to actually program car computers. I've always been really into cars. So I knew when I was 18 or 19 that cars were going to be a big are going to be a big deal with computer. They're going to be computerized, which of course they are now. So I wanted to learn how to program that. So that's what I went to school for. Eduardo Vandenberg, thank you so much for the super chat. Pure character lifting some weights, saying keep it up. Cool. So anyway, so yeah, so I went to college and became computer science. Then that got into my current job, which is programming home automation systems, and I've been doing that for roughly 20 years. And just recently, in the last like year or two, I started actually servicing people's automation systems on their fish tanks here in Arizona. Because unfortunately, there's really no one here in Arizona that knows what the heck they're doing when it comes to Apex. Like all the service companies here have no idea how Hydros, Apex, GH, none of that. They don't have a clue how any of that works. So I found a niche to start doing that, and it's actually been working out pretty well. I've been getting calls on it. And it's been really quite interesting how many people don't know about automation here. I mean, really, about fish tank automation and
It,
gadgets and
it comes
gears and
it comes naturally to you.
right.
Um, but yeah, you would be surprised how much it looks like. Uh, I went well. I did information systems. I tried to do programming in college, and I think my second year I realized like this is not going to be for me. So I did IT, and outside when I graduated, I did some IT work.
Mhm.
But something that I realized when I was doing IT work, so I think you and I, or most people who are our age or younger, when we're using computers, we know what we want to do. We just have to figure out
Mhm.
how to do it. Like we want to know. So that's why when you learn something like, let's say, how to print, we can move from system to system. And, because like, hey, I just need to print a document.
Right.
A lot of people memorize steps. So, have you ever heard like an older person tell you, like, man, how do you remember all this stuff? Because they remember like specific steps how to do things. Like that's
Right.
why when you rearrange someone's icon, they freak out because they're like, "Oh my gosh, I know I got to click file and then print." So
Well,
that's
yes and no. I mean, I have a photographic memory. I've had one since I was a kid. So my memory is so good that, as a programmer, I think it's really important that you have a really good memory, obviously. So I memorize so many different things that it just comes natural to me. But you're right. I mean, there are people that automation is scary. It looks like it's just a daunting thing. And then, of course, there's the flip side of that is why do I need it? Why do I need any of this stuff? I've been doing the same thing for years and it works great. So what's the point, right? And I agree with those people. I meet all kinds of people on the channel. I talk to people at shows that I've been to, very few now. And a lot of them are just like, what's the point of spending money on this? What is the point? And I mean, they do have a point, but I always give them my story. My story seems to sell automation more than anybody's. And that is when I went on vacation. This was about 5 years, six, no, it's been way longer than that, maybe 10 years ago. And I had zero automation at the time. On my 300-gallon fish tank, I had a bunch of exotic fish in there. I had 3.5 foot moray eel. I had some really, really cool angelfish. Went on vacation for 3 days, left it with my friend, the house, and all of a sudden, just one little crack in one of my RO systems. There's a crack. I used to have an RO system in my reef tank, which I will never do again, by the way. And it cracked. This small, like minor leaked into the electrical outlet. It somehow got into the electrical outlet, fried the whole system. And I got home and every fish was dead and the tank was milky brown. Now, it was just an awful day, like for me. It was a really awful day. And ever since then, I started putting in different things. Like I started with putting in light switches that would alert me when they don't have power. Then I do, this was before Apex didn't have the ability to alert you. Now it of course does.
Hmm.
And then, how can I make it so I know when this happens or when this happens? But the biggest thing was always oxygen and electricity. Those were always the two biggest thing I focused on. And now having an Apex, I can know when the oxygen is not there because my pumps turn off. I can know when the electricity turns off. And even though I've been on vacation many times since, it's that peace of mind now that I know if something happens, I won't have an issue, right? So
I hear you.
it's hard to sell people on automation. I've never been a salesman whatsoever in my lifetime. I'm a computer programmer. But anybody that ever pushes back with me on automation, why I need it, I give them that story every time. And I say, well, what if you had $5,000 worth of coral? I mean, yeah, mine were fish, obviously, but again, they were pets to me. It was really a big bummer to me when they all died. But now my reef tank, you've probably seen it before. I have probably well over $10,000 worth of coral in there. You know, and what if something died, or what if something happened, and all of my $10,000 worth of coral died because I didn't want to spend what a hydros is what $500 for a kit. An apex is what 600, 700 for a kit for my $10,000 worth of coral. I don't see it as anything wrong with doing that. Just to have a peace of
So
mind.
when so you're right. When you have something to protect, um, something that valuable to protect, it's easy to make that decision. There's a lot of people who there are a lot of people who I know personally who have like it's a reef tank, and it's not the setup I would run, but they have a Petco tank or just a simple nano tank, 20
Hmm.
gallons, some Dunkins, some clownfish, and
Hmm.
it's hard to convince. They don't have any dosers, they just do water changes, and it's
Yep.
hard to convince people like that to spend 400-500 bucks.
Yeah, that's the
Anyone that's
exception.
doing SPS.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the exception to the rule. I mean, the exception to the
yeah.
rule is, yeah, if you have just a little nano tank, or you have a little tank and you spent $500 total on that whole tank, yeah, I don't see the reasoning for it. But it's those people that have like full-blown SPS tanks and a 100-gallon tank that I'm like, really? You guys won't spend $500 on a hydros, or I mean, seriously, or an apex? It's like all it's going to do is tell you when there's an issue, right? you know?
There are a lot more of those people than you think.
That's
Um,
right.
yeah, we were talking about just my job and what I do, like, a little before, and
Mhm.
I, just like when you look at the people searching for reef tank or versus like a saltwater aquarium, like it could be like a 20 to 1, 30 to 1, like ratio of people just searching for a saltwater aquarium, which I'm assuming a lot of those people are just maybe have a fowler tank, they just have
Yeah.
fish. And just so there are a lot more people. I think there's a lot more of those. So reef tanks, reefers, we're a small percentage of the overall saltwater tank, but I think we spend the most money. But
Hmm.
but the person who I described with the Petco tank, and I don't want to say like I'm talking down to them, but just a simple tank with Duncans, and they don't have
Hmm.
any dosers and water changes, and just have some regular lights. Yeah, it's hard to convince. Like I'm a gear junkie, so I'm gonna throw no matter how much I try. Like I tried, like hey, I'm gonna set up a little tank. I bought like a 3 gallon tank, and I was like, I'm gonna keep that simple. And before you know, like I had a
Yep.
hydro sitting here, like ready to
Same
go.
thing
Like
with
it
my
doesn't matter
10
what I
gallon,
try.
same thing with my 10-gallon tank. You know, my
Yeah,
story of my 10-gallon tank is quite simple. I bought this 10-gallon Nano. It's sitting right over here. I was like, you know what? It's in my office. I'll just do water changes, not even 1 gallon a week, and I'll have a light on it, a very basic light. I bought an AI Prime, very basic light, very basic system. Okay, now it's on my Apex. It does automatic water changes with my main tank because I don't want to do it anymore. It's got a Radeon XR15 on it now. It's got a chiller on it. It's got all kinds of probes and sensors on. It's a 10-gallon nano tank, guys. Like it's the
yep.
easiest tank to
I,
take care of.
I had a 3 gallon, right? And initially, my wife was like, "We want to breed clownfish." And then because I was going on vacation, I'm like, I cannot set up. Well, first, I looked into breeding clownfish. And I was like, this is going to take some planning. You can't just
Yes.
decide you want to
Yes.
breed clownfish. It takes planning. So I'm like, let me just put it on my desk where I am. And I'm like, I'm going to keep it simple. And
Hmm.
I'm looking at the equipment because I've decided to like sell some of it. There is like a Comore doser. There was like a Tunzi fan. There was like a Hydros. There was an AI Prime. There was a Nero 5, and all of that was keeping it simple for me. So there's
Right.
no, yeah,
Well,
keeping it simple for me and for someone else means something completely
well,
different.
Harkins just brought up the same point. I'm gonna put it up here. I put automation on a Fowler tank because I have over 100K in fish. Same thing. You know, it's not necessarily that you have um, it's the amount of investment and, of course, your emotional attachment to your tank. So, yes, if you have a large tank and it's just fish, that doesn't matter. But let's say you bought I don't know, you bought a basslet that was 3 grand and you threw it in there. Just an example. You know, you're going to be like, okay, I'm going to make sure that this basslet doesn't die. I just spent 3 grand on it. I think it all matters on emotional attachment. I think is a big deal, and also how much money you've invested total on the tank really comes into, do I need a controller? Do I need a monitor? And by the way, Harkins, in the chat, just let me know if you got that SPS kit because it took me a little while to get your information. But anyway, so going into that, I think everyone's question on their mind, including my own, because I've seen you on some chats before. You got Hydros. I know you have Hydros now.
Yes. Hmm.
I believe, and again, I might be mistaken, that you've had Apex. What's Let me get your thoughts on both of them, and of course your thoughts on GHL and why you use Hydros. Because if that I'm not mistaken, that's what you use.
Yeah, I use Hydros. So it was a chance to try something new. So let me back up and say, like, I'm not an idiot. Like, I didn't just when the hydros came out day one, ripped it off my tank and put the hydros on. So I have a nano tank. So I ordered it day one, and I put the control 2 on my nano tank. I left my big tank alone.
Mhm.
Um, to see it. It was just a chance to try something new, see what else was out there. I was at one point I was in your like where I automated everything. And then I started to pull back a little bit because I traveled once, man, and my tank, my something happened. I forgot what it was. If one of my modules went down or some water got into an EB8, and because it's the way everything is connected, like my tank went down. And at that time, Derek, like everything on my tank was controlled by my Apex. I mean, like I had the gyre interface modules, which was
Yep.
ramping my gyres up and down. So when your Apex goes down, I had my Kessels like being ramped up, and so everything went down. So my wife was furious with me, like because I'm in Memphis for a week, enjoying
Mm.
good barbecue, working, and she was because when your tank is going down and you're stressed, my wife felt it. So she
Mm.
was running across our living room, plugging stuff in. I had my wife like reconnect the gyro controller. It was not fun on her. So I decided like I didn't get rid of my Apex, but I was going to pull back on how many things I had my Apex, sort of like redundancy. Like, hey, if
Mm.
something went down, so even though I was using like MP40s at the time, I would still have the Apex turn them on and off when I needed, but then I didn't use the WXM anymore because
Uh,
I just wanted control, but I wanted backup. But the change to the Hydros was just I just wanted to try something new.
okay.
I tried it on my Nano tank. I liked it. Um, I don't know if it's a humidity thing, man, but I don't know if it's a humidity thing, but I go through a lot of like I used to have to get my EB832s. I had four of them. One
Mm.
on my nano tank, three on my main display. That's how many devices I had. I had them get them repaired a lot. But I think it's just a humidity thing. Maybe it's a
So
New York humidity thing.
no, so I'm going to actually disagree with you on that point. And you could be right, but let me ask you this: Are you aware
Mhm.
that Apex switched out their power supplies about 6 months ago inside them? Are you aware of that?
I heard, I heard, and I saw posts on.
So
I
for
saw
those that
posts.
yeah, so for those that don't know, and again, I'm just throwing this out there as a possibility to the fixing not only your problem, with a lot of people's problems, is they were using, I'm not going to say cheap because that's not the right word, but they were using not the greatest power supplies inside the original EB832s. And about 6 months ago, they are now using Meanwell power supplies, which are extremely better than what they were using. And I can tell you that I've had one of the newer EBA32s. I've never had a single problem with mine. I'm obviously not in humidity, but um, it's interesting that you say that because a lot of people, including yourself, have had a lot of issues with the EB832s, and they did replace the power supply because they knew of the issue. Now, they didn't tell anybody. I just know this because I'm secret insider Derek who works for Neptune.
So,
But
so, so, so I've heard that, Derek, and I am not. Yeah, I've heard that, but it was kind of frustrating for you to send something in and you would hear like water damage. I think that was just the standard like
of
reply everyone
course,
would get.
of
Like
course.
my EB8, my head unit was mounted. So I have a Red Sea. You know the Red Sea. The cabinet is beside. It was mounted
Okay.
at the top of the thing. And when I sent that in to get fixed, it was like water damage. I was like, what? So every time I sent an EB8 in to get fixed, I would just hear water damage, and that was frustrating. That was frustrating.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
But you,
interesting you say that because you know me. I try to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, with the exception of ReefBot and Bill One. But I give everyone else this, except I give Ecotech, I give Hydros, I give Neptune, I give them all the benefit of the doubt. GHL, the whole nine. And knock on wood, I have never had a single issue with anything Apex. Now, the same can be said, however, about the Hydros that I have, and the same can be said about the GHL that I have. So it's hard for me to say when people talk back to me and say, Neptune product is crap, GHL is built better, right? Hydros is cheap, GHL is better, or blah, 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 blah. Because my experience has always been that they're all equally good, right? But then there's people like you, there's people like many people that have had a lot of issues, and then here's the kicker, they call support, and then that's where the truth, really, the how do I put this? The proof in the pudding comes in handy. Is how good really is Neptune support? How good really is Hydro support? How good really is GHL support? And then that's where you make the decision, what's best for me, because I have had issues with Neptune support in the past too. I've had almost no issues with support with CoralView in the past, but then I hear tons of people that have tons of issues with CoralView. So I think it's up in the air, man. It's just so many people have different experiences, you know?
That is true. That is true. Um, I, yeah, I don't think I can disagree with anything you said there. I don't think I have any counter arguments to anything you say there. The failing, just getting the EBH repair. And by the way, I've never had. It was frustrating on my part, but I'm not saying when I called Neptune, I got like anyone nasty to me. No, they took care of the issue. You paid to get it
Mhm.
fixed. If it was under warranty, they would fix it for me. And then, a lot of times they would send me a new one to get me up while I boxed up and sent the old one back. Your, your camera went off.
Yeah, always
Um,
does.
so they would send me a new one and box the old one up and send it back. So I wouldn't have much downtime. So yeah, you're right. I just started to. I saw some posts on Instagram about people with the power supply,
Mhm.
but they weren't exactly being
Forthcoming?
clear. Like, no,
Yeah.
it's not forthcoming. It's just like you use technology. I use
Mhm.
technology. I maybe not be into certain aspects of it that you. So you might be talking a language that sometimes I don't understand. So I think when someone is an electrical engineer and they're posting something about like a power supply, they're using a language that's way over my head, right? So a
Mhm.
lot of the stuff just went over my head. Like you said it, like, hey, there was an issue with power supplies, and when you said meanwhile power supplies, like that put a lot of things that I was seeing together. So I was like, oh, that's what all that was about. But it was
Yeah.
never said in that way that I got it. It was
Well,
just someone
it's
posting.
the same thing. It's just a generalization in our hobby. I've noticed because like ReefBot, and I bring up ReefBot a lot, um, because I hate them, and I'll explain why. Because they did similar to what you experienced. Well, I'm sorry, that's not true. I apologize. Um, let's chip in and get Derek a new camera. Yes, I need a new camera, guys. The ReefBot situation, I had all these problems, and every time I'd ask them for help, they would say there's no problem, right? And it drove me absolutely insane. It's the same thing with the ACR. There's no problem. And then lo and behold, the company makes something to fix the problem. That drives me crazy. And that's pretty common in our industry. And I bring up the mean well supply because everyone knew there was something wrong with the EB832s, but no one from the company wanted to admit to it, and then they fixed it, right? And then didn't tell anybody so that they wouldn't be responsible. At least that's what I think happened. A lot of
Yeah,
speculation, but it's unfortunate because in this hobby, I think they need to be more transparent with their customers to gain more and keep more customers. Um, let's say hydros. Let's call what's it calling the kettle black? I don't know. Whatever that term is. They had a very very bad software product on their for Wi-Fi product. I realized it when I got it. The software was terrible. My outlets would just turn off and on and do weird stuff. Now, they realized it. They announced, if I recall, they did say something. They said, listen, we realize this. We're going to announce a patch, which fixed it, right? And I think that's what companies should be doing. And in this whole realm of automation and all these people and all this stuff, transparency is huge to keep these clients. And I think I'm seeing tons of chat, guy. I see all your chat. I see all your stuff. I'll get to it.
yeah,
But yes, you guys have to understand this. I know Brett's gonna get mad. Brett love pot calling the kettle black. There you go. That's the word. Brett's gonna go nuts about this. I don't care, Brett. Me and Brett go back and forth a lot. I have fun with Brett. You got to understand, guys. Neptune is a United States company. Okay. Now he's gonna get mad. I don't care if he gets mad. They're in California. Okay. For them to have the manpower, right, the support level, the warehouse, let's say, all the stuff that you need to have the support in the Europe is difficult for a company. It's not that simple. Now, on the flip side, I get people in Europe saying, "Oh, GHL is the best." Well, GHL is located in Germany. Now, guess what? Here in the United States, GHL support is really difficult for us. So it's a double-edged sword, guys. You
I
can't
hear you.
you can't say that. Yes, it's more expensive in the United Kingdom, Brett, because they have to import it from United States to Europe, and it costs them a lot more money. So they're not going to make any money if they don't charge you guys more money. I mean, that's just simple economics, you know? Anyway, that's my spiel. I have to get back at Brett.
No, no, it's all right. Um, I forgot. I was just,
I know, I talk like
yeah,
you,
I was.
man. I just go and
n-
go and go.
n- No, I was saying I tried the hydros and I was just, I had started to scale back my automation a little bit. And I tried the hydros on my nano tank and I liked it. So now when people ask me like, hey, how is the hydros? I gotta sit and like think for a second because it just works. Like I don't have any issues with it, but it's not like I was doing like anything crazy with my Apex anymore. And I also tell people like a hydros is not like not everyone who has an Apex should go to a hydros. It's not the
Mhm.
same. Like there are some setups where if you're a pretty advanced user and you're doing some things like the hydros is not ready for that stuff yet. So it's not like there are setups or I have friends who have certain setups who are doing certain things where the
Mhm.
hydros wouldn't be able to handle that stuff. So no, but it's work. The energy bars are energy bars, but their plug bars are $40. And I've had people ask me like, "Hey, what do you do if it breaks?" I'm like, "It's $40. Like,
Right.
just try,
Well, let
try."
me ask
Like, I
you
don't
let
want to
me
stop.
ask you something on that. You bring up a really good
Mm-hmm.
point. You're an IT guy. I'm an IT guy. I have an associate's degree in information technology. I'm sure you had mentioned you went to school for information technology, so you know networking. Let's be honest. We both have an affinity and I'm really bad with words and I do really good with math, but English is not my best subject. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we have an intelligence for networking. I did a whole
Yes.
stream on networking at one point. And I think most of it was good information for a lot of people out there that don't know networking. And from my eyes, anything that's wireless is the devil. And
Okay.
again, that's coming from an IT perspective. Um, as Coral View, I've explained to them and I've explained to Carlos multiple times, having a wireless, regardless if it breaks, we're not talking about breaks. We're talking about you're gone on vacation. And let's say it's hooked up to something that's a life support. I can't rely on a wireless device. I just can't. Just due to the amount of information that I know about how wireless works. Um, and I'm just curious, what do you think? What's your opinion on wireless power bars, wireless devices?
My life is wireless, is what I say. So when people say that, like, I mean, I've been a remote worker for 7 or 8 years, and wireless has been my life. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I do not like. I literally have to buy one of these like if I need to plug something into like an Ethernet cable, like I have to buy one of those like Apple dongle thingies
Yeah.
because nothing uses like when my company sent me a phone and I had to plug it into a thing.
Oh,
Like I
that's
literally
that's like
I had
that's so 80s, man. That's so
I
80s,
had
man.
I had to go get a Cisco switch and run wire around my place because everything is
Uh-huh.
wireless. So my life is wireless. Like everything I do is wireless. So I don't see an issue with it.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is my system, and I don't think it's anything crazy. Like I told you before that I was pulling back like on automation.
Mm-hmm.
Like my system is set up in a way where if the wireless fails and the plug bar, everything on my thing turns on, the
Yeah.
most that's going to happen is my skimmer is going to overflow, and that's it. And when
Well,
I go on vacation, like
that's good because you designed your system to make sure if
yeah,
something happens. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of people out there doing that. But yeah,
yeah,
keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like the most that's going to happen is my skimmer is going to overflow. And when I go on vacation, because I've been through that before, when I go on vacation, like I put a plastic bag over, because I have a Royal exclusive skimmer. And I've had it before where it overflowed and stuff splashed out because it was so violent. I don't know if something died in the water. So I just put a bag over the skimmer top. So if anything overflows, it kind of just goes back in the sun. But yeah, so my plug bar, I've never had an issue where anything, like if there is a failure where it cannot communicate, everything turns on. And I don't know if, yeah, I don't know of a situation where my system is set up where if everything I have hooked up turns on, like anything's going to die or anything's
Well,
going to
the good,
happen. It's not
like I said earlier, the good news for everyone out there is CoralView found that their software was inadequate and they updated it. So now things like this are much more of a rare occurrence. Whereas, like you just said, if something was to happen, they have fallacies there to fix it, which is fantastic. Which is why I give Hydros a lot of credit in what they're doing. Um, just from my own personal standpoint, because of what I do for a living and because of all the things I see with wireless, I think people are misinterpreting what I'm saying. I'm reading some of the comments. It's not, guys, it's not the fact that the Wi-Fi fails. It's not the fact that there's a backup. It's the fact that because it's wireless, interference can be introduced into Wi-Fi very easily. People don't realize this unless they're in the, like I do. Like I do wireless networking for a living. Let's just say this is a completely off the wall example, guys. Let's just say your neighbor accidentally put a Wi-Fi in the same channel as yours, and they have a blender, and that blender has the same packets as your Wi-Fi controller bar that was made by someone in China, but it was made in China, and it has the same chip and has the same stuff. And that, for some reason, somehow magically, they turn on their blender and it turns on something on your Wi-Fi bar. Again, completely off the wall example. Um, that's what worries me. It's not the fact
yeah,
that it, you know,
the, we're not, this is not, so I get what you're saying because like I said, apartment living, and there are times when you turn on, like, I doesn't even have to be my neighbor. Like, it might be my microwave that kills the white. Like before I got an extender, like I'd be sitting in my kitchen and use the microwave, and the internet goes down because the
yeah,
microwave just pulverizes a signal. But I don't see like my dosing pumps. I'm using Versa dosing pumps. Like if it cannot communicate to the plug bar and it leaves my dosing pumps on, like the dosing pumps are what control like
hmm,
how much I'm dosing anyway. Like I said, I think my system is set up in a way where if I'm not gonna say if everything goes down, because if everything goes down, you're in trouble anyway. But if
right,
everything is on, and I did, like I said, I didn't take this decision lightly. I would randomly like yank stuff out and put it back in and yank stuff out to see how
yeah,
it would work, and all I would happen was my skimmer would like overflow. Like that's
right,
the worst that could happen. So I get what you're saying, but this is not like, I don't consider it like a big deal. Like it's if the
okay.
signal goes down, it
That's why
stays with the
I wanted
programming.
to hear your
Yeah,
opinion on it. Yeah, because
yeah. I've been
I got another comment here that I do want to comment on. And Aaron's Aquaculture said the only thing for wireless is it's dependent on the wireless part of the router, but if a router goes down, you lose both wireless and wired anyway. All right, so let me kind of comment on that. That is correct. However, I'm talking about internal intra-structure networking, which means like in GHL, they have their PAB connection, which is a Cat5, but it's an internal network. Apex has its Aquabus, which is an internal network. It has nothing to do with your router. It has nothing to do with your Wi-Fi. However, in the Hydros scenario, it absolutely has to do with your router because all of their stuff is wireless, with the exception of the controller to controller, which they use like a CAN bus. And that CAN bus can't be penetrated by anything. And that's what I'm talking about. And I know they're going to make a wired power bar at some point. I know they are.
yeah. I think for my counterpoint to that would be the majority of when wireless goes down is when the internet goes down. It's not your internal network. From
Right. Right.
just from my there's been like in the last 5 years, I would say my router went down. Like we all started with like a cheap Linksys, and then of course you had the cable company try to give me their router, and I'm like, no, I don't want that because I don't think it's a good router. So I
Mhm.
always insist on buying my own. So the majority of the time when my internet's not working or my wireless isn't working, it's the internet not working. It's not my internal house Wi-Fi. And
Correct.
in that instance, my Hydros works because then you talk to the head unit via Bluetooth, and
Right.
then it still
Right.
communicates with the plug bar via the
Right.
internal network. So I've had
Absolutely.
that scenario happen to me before where my Hydro said like, "Hey, like your internet is down." It was
Mhm.
like, "Do you want to switch to Bluetooth?" And I was like, "Cool, I'll
Cool.
switch to Bluetooth." And it's still that was something that I heard it had Bluetooth, but I wasn't really sure like like
Listen,
what that
listen. I
meant.
think I think people on the channel are misinterpreting me just a hair. I love hydros. I think I think O knows this too. I love hydros. I have nothing against it. Um, I think it's fantastic. What I'm just saying as a general thing is I personally would never put a life support system on a wireless power bar. That's all I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the controller. I'm not talking about the software. I think I think the Hydros is awesome. I don't think people are I think misinterpreting what I'm saying. Now in the GHL, I'm a little bit on more of the negativity side on GHL. But when it comes to Hydros and Apex, I love both of them equally. I think they're both fantastic products. I'm just saying personally, that's why I asked Oral what his thought was on the wireless power bar. I think people are thinking that I hate the Hydros. That's not the truth at all.
I think the convenience also, like everything is a risk. Like I've seen setups, and it has happened to me before where you run like when I had Neptune on my kids Nano, I drilled through the walls in my apartment, ran like an Aquabus cable, and something happened. I think when I was pulling the cable through the wall, like maybe when I was cutting through the studs, maybe I cut the cable. But
Rats.
when I plugged it into that new energy bar, like something happened and the entire system went down.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me like unplugging module by module by module to figure out what the issue was. That it was that long run of cable. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the convenience of it, and that's also why we're saying like in some really advanced setups, maybe the Hydros is not for you. But I think the convenience of like, hey, if you have a mixing station and you just want to plug a wireless bar just to turn pumps on and off, like why not?
I
Like
think you're 100% correct, and I was going to bring that up next in our conversation. Is convenience is a big deal, and wires. A lot of people hate wires, and I included. I hate having to. People are gonna get mad at me. I hate having to zip tie wires. Again, I zip tie wires. I don't want to hear your Velcro nonsense that the people are going to talk about. I zip tie. I've been doing it for 20 years. But anyway, uh, having to zip tie the wires, having to label them all, clean them up. Yes, it's a pain in the ass, especially if you have to change things. It's an absolute pain in the butt. And I totally agree that that's where that wireless aspect comes in handy, especially if you have remote things like remote mixing stations, like you said. Or in my case, I have a remote fish tank, and I had to run a whole freaking USB cable across the house, right? Um,
I've also
but
seen guys, Derek,
it
that
makes me feel
automate
better.
tanks. I've seen guys that automate their tanks without a Hydros or without an Apex, where they just use like Alexa stuff.
Oh,
And again,
yeah.
they just like, hey, Alexa, turn this on and off. Alexa, my good friend Paul, um, I recently convinced him to get an Apex, but before that, oh, just
That's awesome.
you know what's happening. You know what's happening. Just give me.
I just tell her to shut up. That's what I do.
You knew exactly what was
Yeah.
happening because
Yeah.
once I mentioned her name, they all came on.
I
But
have one
yeah, I
right
don't.
here, but yeah, I get it.
Yeah, no. Uh, I don't know how it got to the point where she was asking me to sign up for Amazon Music because I don't
Oh
think I said
wow.
anything about music. So, hey, that's that. But I yeah, I know people who do like some level of automation with just like that stuff, and they
You
just tell it to.
brought up a really good point. I apologize for interrupting, but uh, I have a whole stream or a whole thing on Habitat. I bought this Habitat. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's this little box. It's like this big, and it can control your whole house. I mean, you can control every outlet, every light, every. I mean, you could do all kinds of crazy things, flood sensors, and it's all wireless, and it works great. I mean, it absolutely works great. Um, I still, however, and it's Z-Wave. It's not wireless, by the way, guys. It's Z-Wave. I still can't rely on Z-Wave to run a $10,000 coral tank. Now, again, that's just me. For people that have a $500 investment and want to spend $10 on an outlet to control their heater, I don't know. Yes, that's perfectly fine, and I think it's awesome. You guys are getting into automation, and that's a step in the right direction. And that stuff will give you alerts too, which is really cool. Um, so again, there's so many different scenarios in which both can. That's why when people ask which controller should I buy, it's like, man, everyone's different and everyone's needs are different. It's so hard. You know.
I see a lot of GHL questions. What is your thoughts on GHL, and where do you think GHL fits into like the entire? Or do
Okay.
you want me to give my thoughts on GHL first? Or
Well, I will definitely want your thoughts first, but let me say something before you say it. For those that don't know, I spent a lot. When I say a lot of time making my 15 episode GHL versus Apex series. We're talking hours and hours of effort to make that in order to not only prove which one I believe is better, but also provide the associated information so you guys can make your own opinion. So, I just want to mention that I've already done my due diligence to explain what I'm going to explain after you explain what you're going to explain. But I encourage people to watch that. But anyway, go ahead.
all right, I think for me, GHL is. I like GHL hardware, but I think right now with the hydros, like GHL fits into that no man's land. Because if you want something cheap and easy, you would go with the hydros. Cheaper and easy, you would go with the hydros because they have a $200 option. And if you want the crazy setup, then you go with the Apex. But for me, my experience with GHL is the software is just so bad or not intuitive. When I bought, like, I use Macs.
Yep, so do I.
I I bought a copy of Windows to set up my GHL doser.
That's
Like I
right.
tell people that, like I spent a hundred because GCC only runs on Windows, and then that software looks like it's somewhere out of Windows 95. Like honestly, um, also there are a few little things that just don't make sense. So, and I got this from a friend who I know who runs GHL, and also there's a guy called Reef who bought their alkalinity monitor. So he paid like $850 for their alk monitor, but when it tested alk out of range, it didn't send him any notification because you have to have a Profilux for it to send you. So if you
Yes.
say, I want to keep my alk at 8, and it tests your alk at 0 or 1 or even 15,
Same thing with the
it will not
ion director,
notify you.
guys. Same thing with the
It
ion
will
director.
it it will not send you a notification. You need to buy the, like, you've spent 800 to $1,000 on this, and it will not notify you. You have to get their
Every other product
800,
will. Every other product will.
like everything. Like if you buy a Neptune head unit and then buy a Trident, it'll notify you. Um, Alcatronic will
It's
notify
around
you.
the same
Everything.
price. It's very close. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, but I'm saying is
Hmm.
why, like, that seems to me like so silly. And then when you talk to support, it's almost like, well, you need a Profilux, and they say it in such a matter of fact. And sometimes when someone says something to you, and this happens to me sometimes, where someone will say something to you, and they will say it so confident, you don't answer immediately. It's almost like you take a step back and start to question yourself, like,
Yeah,
Like, no, 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 that doesn't make sense.
the
So for
KH
me, it's
director
just the
will, the Alcatronic will, they all will.
yeah. I just don't get that. Like the software is not. Um, I see. I'm just gonna jump. Like Brett just says, GHL is getting push notifications. Like,
Getting is the
yes,
key
that might be
word.
fine. Might be. Come on, man. Like, how long has Apex Fusion has been out? Right? Like that's how long GHL been working on their cloud stuff and push stuff. Like I understand like Neptune is America and Hydros is America, so we're a little head on software, but you
Yeah.
shouldn't be 5 years behind. Like 5 years
Oh,
behind.
GHL's
Like
been around for a long time. Yeah.
when I got my Doser 2.0 like years ago, they had just launched their cloud service, and I'm like, you're like 4 years behind. So getting, yeah, no, like I'm,
Hey,
you,
Eduardo, Mr. Eduardo. I do not have
yeah.
EB832s, by the way. I appreciate your super chat, by the way. But I have EB8s. I do not have EB832s for that specific
Yeah.
reason. Just to answer your
I,
question.
I'll tell you a quick story, Derek. So I went to Macna when it was in Vegas. And about that time, I had bought because I told you I'm a gear junkie. I bought a Doser 2.1.
That's a good
Very
product.
excited about it. Yeah, very, but no, that's about the time we were tearing up dosing heads along
Mm,
with Reef Keeper, CC Reef Keeper out in San Diego. He and I
mm.
were tearing up dosing heads for a while, couldn't figure out why. Um, so I saw GHL and Royal exclusive at Neptune at Macna, and it had I think the owner of GHL and the guy who does support for GHL in the US. And I brought up to them, I said, "Hey man, like I'm a Mac user, like you know, like why do I need a Mac?" He's like, "Oh, like we have something. You don't have to use a Mac anymore to set it up." I'm like, "Cool," because and I'm like, "Show it to me." Like, "Hey, let's do it." And he showed my phone. He's like, "Oh, like you need to update your firmware." I'm like, "Okay, how do I update my firmware?" He's like, "Oh, you got to plug it into GCC to update the firmware." So
Right.
I'm like, and
Yep.
he's just said it such a matter of fact. I'm like, man, like I just told you, like
I
I
have a
don't have
Mac.
Windows. I have a Mac. Like I don't want to hook this up to a computer. And he's telling me you don't have to. But every time you need to do a firmware update, you need to hook it up to GCC. And I'm like that just deflated me. And the guy, like it was another one of those times where he just said it so matter of fact. And I'm like,
Like
what?
like nothing. It's nothing. It's no big
Yeah,
deal.
like I'm like,
Yeah, it's a big
yeah. So
deal.
I think when I think I made that decision that around that time,
Mhm.
to like,
So,
it's funny. Jeff from Daily Reefing, he was with me when we were having this conversation, and I
mm,
looked at him and he looked at me, and we just like, that internal laugh where you're like, we don't
yeah.
know what's happening here, and we just walked off.
So we're getting a little low on time. I only do this for an hour, but I do want to go through my GHL spiel, and then unfortunately we're gonna have to cut it off because I got to be somewhere,
All right.
and I'll have to have you on again. But watch my GHL versus Apex series, guys, if you want to see some discrete evidence of what I'm about to say, because there's a lot that I did to come up with these opinions. Okay, I'm not just spitballing this stuff. 15 episodes, it's a lot of a lot of episodes, but watch it. Here's the deal. I bought both of them. I didn't get them paid for. I bought both of them out of my own money. They were both around the same price. I think they were both $800. Got the same kits, same everything. I found that not only is the software just absolutely horrendous, and you got to remember, guys, I am a computer programmer. Okay. Um, and I'm going to be honest with you guys. As a computer programmer, I went back and forth with them about how you do certain things. What really set me off, and which really kind of was like, okay, what is wrong with these people, is in order to do a leak sensor, just to know if your leak sensor has leaked and then turn off a skimmer, you have to go through this a bunch of garbage. Specifically, it's called water fill. It's literally called water fill. Okay? So from a normal standpoint, if you're going to program something and you want to program a leak detector, why is it called water fill? And then if you want to control a feed mode, it's not called feed mode, it's called filter pump. Okay, that's filter pump is called your feed mode. Now, I'm just going through two examples. You guys can see this on my evidence. Like I said, as a normal programmer, I was like, this is insane. Like this is insane, right? Now, I get the pushback from GHL users. It's like, well, my stuff's bulletproof. Well, my stuff's bulletproof. Yeah, okay. My stuff has been bulletproof, right? Your Coral View has been bulletproof, right? So what makes it any better? Okay, someone says, well, it looks nice. I'm like, okay, that's also, I think that the color blue looks nice, but my wife thinks the color red looks nice. Again, these are all opinions, but factual evidence shows that the GHL for an average reefer is very, very difficult to program. It's also very, very difficult to work with. You can spend hours setting it up, and then if you want to make a change, spend more hours setting it up. So in a nutshell, that's why I've chosen to not use GHL. Your specific example is also very poignant. The fact that you need a Windows software in order to do much. I mean, you do, right? I mean, let's be honest. You need
How
Windows.
can you how can you pay 800? Like I understand. Like how can you pay $800? Like to me, when I initially heard about like so when I initially bought the Doser 2.1, I was thinking to myself like this was just like the way I got this was gonna lead me. I love like you could run your doser separately, and then this could lead you into adding things to it until you got like a full on, you're using like the GHL system. Because
Mm-hmm.
when I started using an Apex, like my heater had failed and crashed my tank. So I went to buy like a Ranco, and the guy at the store said, like, hey man, just get an Apex. Like it's about the same price. Like back then they had the Apex Junior or
Right.
Apex Light or something.
Yeah.
So I was thinking like this would get me into the GHL system, but then you couldn't program it, you couldn't do all these things. And I like how everything was standalone. And I think that guy who Reef Dork, I'm thinking that was in the back of his mind, like, hey, I will get their ALC monitor, and then I would slowly add more
Mm-hmm.
GHL stuff on top of it. But how can you pay eight
Well,
hundred bucks for something?
that's you bring up a really good point too. Their controller is 800. Well, they have a cheaper controller for 500, and it's
But then, but
wireless.
then, but then you cannot. Yes, that's cool. But then when you buy the GHL Lite, it's not upgradable to a GHL. That's a separate system by itself. Like you can
Mm-hmm.
when you buy the GHL Lite or the GHL Mini that is called, it's its own thing. Like you cannot. It's not like you buy like an Apex Lite or a Hydros Control 2 and then you add more modules to it. It's the same thing. You just connect it. It's its
Yeah.
own thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
So
there's
there's no
again,
lead in.
guys,
There's no lead
there's
in.
there's some really good things about GHL. I just want to say this. Their probes are pretty good, right? They got those chips that are really cool. The fact that you can swap out chips, I think, is really cool. They do not have push notifications. The notifications you have to have a email server in order to use them. I mean, there's a lot of silly things that they're doing. Lucas has a really good comment here, and I want to post it. A lot of people get hung up on the fact that Apex's frame is made of plastic, where GSL frame is made of aluminum. And at the end of the day, the components are all made in China. Yes and no, Lucas. I mean, yes, most. I mean, the good GHL makes a lot of their products in Germany, right? But again, it has nothing to do with material, guys. You guys all get hung up on, and Lucas made a really good point. Who cares if it's made of plastic? My car's made of plastic. You know, hell, $100,000 cars have plastic in them. Doesn't mean that they're inferior, right? It just drives me crazy. I'm sorry.
There is so much to love. Like I talked to Dev, and I know, like I remember, one time when I was talking to Dev, and he was installing like an expansion card into his GHL because I was like, oh, I remember back in the day when you used to like install like an upgraded video card in your computer. But it's just Yeah, I don't want to make it sound like I just think the software, and there are a few things that just don't make sense
Right.
with the GHL. And I think and the fact that it's not a hard, it's crazy how much we said about GHL, and none of it is hardware. None of us has ever said anything about the hardware. It's just
Right.
software. And it's things that's been happening for a while. So we think it's frustrating because these things are easily correctable because it's just software. Right?
So
These software.
Eduardo said another funny thing. Sorry, buddy. If you buy a Windows computer, you can't get iOS software. I think you're misinterpreting the point that I was making. It should be compatible with both. Okay, Apex is compatible with both. Hydros is compatible with both. GHL is not. That's the. It's not that if you have a Windows computer, you can't use Apple, and if you have a Apple computer, you can't use Windows. It's that it should be compatible for all. That's the comment that we're trying to make.
Yeah, can you set up a Hydros on a Mac? Yes, you can. Can you set up a Apex on a Mac? Yes, you can. Can you set up EcoSmart Live on a Mac? Yes, you can. Can you
Mm-hmm.
set up Hydros on a Mac? No, you can't. That's the disadvantage
No,
that you're
GHL.
running
You
into.
said Hydros.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I said GHL. Yeah,
yeah.
you can. So, even the old, yeah, like everything else has Macs compatible software.
Aaron's
And
yeah, Aaron made a really good point here. This is another thing, guys. GHL has been updating, he put in quotes, for years. Perfect comment. That's another thing. When CoralView says they're making something, they make it, and it comes out within reasonable time, 6 months. Apex announces or Neptune announces, comes out within, let's just say, 6 months, with the exception of the Trident. But it comes out in a reasonable time. GHL says they're coming out with something, and they've been saying that for 5 years. The Ion Director, how long did that take to come out? Just an example. So they could be saying things, but we don't know if that's ever going to be the truth, right? I mean, we assume it's going to be the truth. And when we go into support, that's a whole nother fiasco with GHL, unfortunately. They're, and I've spoke to them, I've had them on, they want you to repair their own products on site and not send them back in. That's what they want you to do. And for you and me, you're not an electrical engineer, like you said. Sometimes you can't do that. You don't know how to solder. Like, some people are not good at soldering. Like,
I
come
don't,
on
I don't,
now.
I don't, I paid good money for this stuff, and I paid good money for this stuff. Like, and that's one of the reasons I don't buy like Jabo and some of that stuff is like
Brett,
I
Brett,
I
Brett,
don't
Brett.
I don't want to fix it. I don't want to fix it myself. Like that's not what I'm here for. Like I'd rather have someone, and that's why I like the companies that have good support. Like I
Yes,
wanna like know there's someone. That's why I like Ecotech personally. Like I can
they have
pick up the
great
phone. I
support.
don't even have to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they have
you
great
pick up the
support.
phone and call like 9 to 5. I know I'm on the East Coast and they're in Pennsylvania, so when I need stuff
Phone
repaired,
numbers are
it's
huge. Phone numbers
it's a
are
one
huge.
day turnaround time. Yeah, nine to
Guys,
five Eastern
I
time.
can
You
say this
call.
with absolute certainty because I'm in the electronics business. If you're a company and you don't have a support number, I don't buy from you. It's that simple. It's that simple. Uh, Brett said Mobius cannot be done on a Mac. It absolutely can be done
I
on a
know.
Mac.
You can it?
Yes.
I think it's phone only. Oh, can it? I've never
Yeah.
tried.
Hydros and wave engines for the. Okay. Anyway, before we go, I want to talk about one more thing I forgot, and this is
Uh-huh.
gonna be fun. This is gonna be there's gonna be it's gonna be a two-parter, and we definitely have to make it quick, unfortunately. Um,
All right.
what is your opinion on the Reef bot? So that's where we're gonna go first. I want to get your opinion on it. Have you ever had it? Do you ever want it?
No, like why would I?
I would
It's
love to know.
it's. I mean, I saw it in Vegas, that same Magna I was telling you about, and I thought it was kind of cool, but like, no, 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 like I wouldn't want it. Just like the same thing, I wouldn't want a Mastertronic because it's just Reef bot on steroids, in my opinion. Just it's just not for me. No.
Do you feel, and you don't have to say this because you're on camera and you're live. Do you feel that everything I've said about the Reef bot is justified? You don't have to
I
answer
think
if you
you
don't
can be
want
a
to.
little. I think you can. I think you are pretty harsh when you say it, but would I buy it? No. And I buy a lot of things. Like, no,
Okay.
I get my
I
hands
like
on a lot of
I
things.
like I like that answer. I like
Would
that
I want to
answer.
get my hands on? I have. Let's just say, let's just put it on this. There are a lot of things, even stuff I would not use or companies I don't like, that I would love to get my hands on things to test and play with and see what it's about. I have, like, if you have one and you want to send it my way, like, cool. But I have no intentions of ever like using a reef bot. Like, I don't see the need for it. I don't like I alkalinity testers, I believe.
Hmm.
But I think from what I'm seeing, when you have a stable tank, alkalinity is the one thing you need to worry about. Calcium and magnesium, you can go once a month by
Hmm.
testing once every 2 months. If you're using a calcium reactor, even longer. Like the
Right.
Trident, it tests all three, and that's good.
But you do
Um,
know that the ReefBot tests alkalinity, though. I'm sure you're aware of that.
it does, but no,
I like it. I like the
no.
answer.
Like there's so like there is the Alcatronic, there is the Trident, there is even the GHL. There is the what's the other one that CoralView had, the KH Guardian. There are so many
Ah.
other ones that you can do without the noise, without the project box look and feel. Like, why would I go
Oh, you mean the bomb?
there?
I thought it was a bomb when it first came out. I know.
Uh, uh, you know, to be honest, man, when I saw it in Magna Vegas, the finished product was a lot more refined. What I saw, that first gen thing was ugly. Like, I don't make a lot of videos on my YouTube channel, but I shoot and do a lot of interviews. I don't know why. I just get lazy and never review them. I have an interview with I forgot his name at that Macna when I first saw it, and I also have a Reefapalooza interview from like 2017
I
or
gotta see that.
2018, and I just never released it. But it's a lot better. Like, what you have, they did a lot of work to get it to where it is. Like, when I first saw it, my friends who were with me, their first thing was, man, that looks like an inkjet printer on like a thing, like, the inkjet like thing going back and forth.
Yep.
Remember when you had those cheap
Yep.
Lexmark printers?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
That's good,
but yeah, I
man.
have no intentions of getting a reef bot.
I agree. I can be a little harsh on them. I've tried to make amends with them. Unfortunately, they have no interest, and that's fine. That's the other problem that I have with it is the biggest problem I have with it is I have attempted to give them the benefit of the doubt on multiple occasions, and they haven't provided me with any semblance of assistance. And again, I have two reef bots, so it's not like I haven't provided them with financials. And the fact is, they provide me with absolutely terrible support. And it's like, listen,
I have a
guys,
question.
yeah.
I have a question. How did you end up with two?
Oh, well, that's a
That has
long
to be like
story.
this.
That's a
Yeah,
long
like that.
story.
Okay, we'll tell it another time. But
Yeah.
it's
And both of them did the exact same thing. Both of them leaked from the exact same place. Both of them have the same connectivity issue. Both of them had the same notification issues. I mean, both of them had a lot of issues that were identical.
and I saw your video and I saw your comments on it. And to be honest, I've seen people on Facebook and on YouTube mentioning the same thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not like, sometimes people say something doesn't work without giving specifics. Like
Uh-huh.
the specific issue you've mentioned, I've seen like Farm Boy Reef do a video and have that specific issue.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen
It's the
other
same
people do
thing. Yep.
videos. I've seen on forums they have these specific issue.
Listen,
And
guys,
I
watch.
I hate I hate the fact when I have a product and I saw Farm Boy Reef having to troubleshoot it, having to reset the SD card. Like,
Yep.
I hate when I've paid that much money for a product having to
It's
like
a thousand
yeah,
dollars, and the
yeah.
Mastertronic's 15, and we can't get it in the United States. But even if we did, no offense to Eric and Jonas over there, they're really, really good people. But I have a feeling it's going to be plagued by the same issues that the ReefBot had. It's very similar, you know. Um,
But
but
they have a
there's
history.
support.
They have a history. Yeah, they have a history. Like, they've released a product that they've had iterations on that work. So, and they've also liked before. So maybe it should be a little bit more confident in them with the
Let
Mastertronic.
me
But
Yes, let me also repeat something or rephrase what I said. Jonas and Eric will support you. So if you have an issue with it, they're going to be there for you. You know, that's the difference. Okay.
Okay.
The reef bot leaks all over the place, and all they say to me is, sorry. Okay. Have a good day, guys. Like, seriously.
Oh, that's what they. Oh, I thought you were signing off. That's what they said.
No, 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 no. No, the reef bot leaks, and then they're like, nope, sorry. Okay, Brett, you're right. And then one more other quick thing. Oh, man. Um, how long have you been watching me? Have you been watching me from the beginning? Have you watched a lot of my
Yeah,
stuff?
yeah, I'd watch a lot of your stuff. I think Dupree. I think you know producer Reef in the chat. He
Yeah,
put me on. Yeah, friend of mine. I think he's out
good
your
guy.
way now, but
Yeah, good guy.
he lives in Long Island here. So yeah, he put me on.
Oh, I've
Um,
I've bitched and moaned to him so many times. Oh my goodness. When I was having the ACR problem, oh my God, I was like, dude, Dupree, you got to help me. I was
he
like,
has one too. I think he got it a really good deal, but he has an ACR too.
oh, poor guy, poor guy.
He hasn't hooked it up. Yeah, he hasn't hooked it up, but
See, I
I
have
don't. Yeah,
guys. I get tons of trolls on my channel, and that's fine. And I say it how it is. I don't care. I really don't care. I say it how it is. That's why people watch me. Um, I'm going to be honest with everybody as much as I can, and that's why the reason I was asking is, um, have you? Oh, I totally lost my train of thought. Oh my God. So you've been watching me, and yeah, you've been watching me, and I don't know what
hmm
else to say.
you're gonna ask about did I see something? Um, did I watch the GHL series? Hilariously,
No,
yes,
hilariously.
yes.
Oh, I got so
Um,
much hate mail for that. Dude, I got so much hate for the pricing comparison between Hydros and Apex. I got so much hate. Oh my God. And I was like, guys, I'm just trying to be honest here. It's more
yeah,
expensive.
there were some things I didn't get though. Like I always, and you're not the only one who says this. Like there's people who will say to me like, um, I want to know like the pH and stuff of like my mixing, and I'm like, why? Um, I just I don't know.
I
Like I just
deleted.
mix salt
Listen,
water.
I made a mistake and I deleted
Yeah, yeah.
that video. I made a mistake and I hone up to my mistakes, guys. I see
So
a
there
perfect. I see a perfect. Oh my God. I see your point 100%. Not many people put
there
pH
are
on a mixing station.
there are tribal people on each side of everything. Like, and I don't. The thing I don't understand is, yeah, I like there's products I don't like, but or it's almost as if like you're a Neptune guy. It's almost as if when you say like you're a Neptune guy, people assume like you have to hate GHL or you have to hate like, hey, you're a Neptune guy. Like there's a lot of like, hey, I like Ecotech, and when I say I like
Mm.
Ecotech, oh my gosh, people, it's almost like anything I have to say about anything else like does not hold any weight because I
Well,
say I like Ecotech.
okay, Brett's gonna get mad at me again, and that's fine. I love you, Brett. I noticed this, and again, if I'm mistaken, or I'll just tell me I'm mistaken. I notice this a lot more. I notice that people that are biased towards Neptune generally don't hate as much on other products like GHL or Hydros as the flip side, whereas GHL likers really hate on Neptune, really hate on Coral View. Do you feel that's the same or no? I feel a lot more animosity towards people and Neptune than people towards the opposite. I see more
Well,
people.
that is going to be true because you're the big boy. So so when it comes to controllers, everyone is punching up. Like, like, so I think you'll notice that. Like, I don't know if that's true, but I think that's something you would notice. Like, if there are a small band of GHL users,
Mm,
like, you would notice, if they're saying, I, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just think like Neptune has the biggest community, maybe because you're a part of that. That's a tough question to answer, man. But I don't see it.
Okay. Okay.
There are tribal people. There are tribal people in every like thing. There are
You're
people
right.
who
You're
say like
100%
there are
correct.
people there are people who say I would never set up a tank without an apex, and I would be like, man, this guy's crazy. But at the beginning of the stream, what did you and I just say? We set up little tanks and we're like, we're not going to do automation on it. And then what
And
ends up
then we
happening?
did.
That
Yeah.
that creep sets in. So
You know, that's the other thing. You mentioned a good point right there. Is some of us are just gear junkies. We just love stuff, and that's how I am. And I love spending money on stuff. Hell, I bought a Lego set, which I hadn't bought in 30 years. And now I bought like 20 after I bought one. I was like, "Oh, I need more. I need more." So it's just a gear junkie mentality. And guys on my channel have consistently bashed me for being biased towards Neptune, and I've said consistently that the reason I'm semi-biased towards Neptune is I've owned it for 20 years and I know it. And why would I just get rid of all of it? It works for me, right? But
that
you're
is
not
true.
going to see me. You're not going to see me going into GHL forums or Hydros forums and bashing them. You're not going to see that. Now you're going to see me bash ReefBot because I hate it, but um, I will say how it is with what I feel about GHL. But I'm not going to consistently go in there and bash them just because I like my Neptune. Like that's just not the way I am. People might disagree with what I just said, but I try my best to be very unbiased as much as I can. It's hard. It's hard because
I can understand.
if you love something and it works really well for you, it's hard to show your love for it, you know. But it's
If
hard
you
also to
invest,
bash
if,
something unless you've had the experience that I've had, like with ReefBot. I bash it in the sense because of all the problems I've had with it, and I can see people that have Neptune bashing it because of all the problems they've had with it. So I guess
if you
I
have a
might be being
relationship with a
hypocritical.
product, if you have a relationship with a product, years long relationship with a product, like something would need to be 50% better for you to go through and rip your right, rip
Right.
your apex out to like do it. And when you've had like like when you've had a relationship with a manufacturer, like I can understand that. I don't understand the people who go elsewhere and rip that. Like
But
those are
that's but
trolls, to be
again,
honest.
that's my point that I'm making. I might be hypocritical, and I agree that I might be hypocritical when what I'm saying because I bash ReefBot all the time. Um, but I don't really make an effort to just go and bash things unless the subject comes up. Like if someone asks me a question, I'm gonna say what I feel about it. But I don't make an effort to go on my channel and say, other than the ReefBot sucks above my head, that I
Do you expect them to answer you? Like I know you don't really expect them to answer your emails or anything, right? Because I don't think they want to at this point.
well now let me say something now. Okay, before I didn't do this. I asked them for help multiple times and gave them multiple chances, and now I've changed my tune. So I
Okay.
don't expect them to now, but I did in the beginning when I was not bashing them, when I was trying to get help, and they continuously wouldn't give me proper help. So,
Okay.
and as a YouTube, listen, we have a lot of jokes on my channel. The batfish killer, reefbot sucks is just another joke in my. It's an internal joke, right? I know it's harsh, and I know it hurts them, and I understand that, guys. But if you've been through what I've been through with the ReefBot and have had so much damaged equipment due to the stuff that they've done and zero responsibility and zero respect, you'd feel the same way. I mean, you would. And as a platform, as a YouTube platformer, and someone that has the ability to go out there and say, this is what happened to me and I do not want this to happen to you. I think it's in your best interest and my best interest to tell people this is what happened to me and I do not want it to happen to you. You know, and that's why I started the channel in the first place, is to get all the BS out of our hobby and provide information that's helpful to people with the from time to time inclusion of saying don't buy this. You know,
That is some lofty goals there.
I know. I know Devin's a great guy. I love Devin with all my heart, but he is different about that. He loves to not say anything negative about anybody, and that's his prerogative, and that's perfectly fine. And I love Devin for it. Me, I'm gonna say it how it is. And if people don't like it, then people don't like it. And that's fine with me. I started this to give honest opinions, and if someone's treating me like crap, I'm gonna say someone's treating me like crap. Like, guys, don't ever buy anything from Bill Wan. Don't ever buy anything from him. And I've said that multiple times. Yeah, Dev does get free stuff. You have a point, Glenn. I do buy everything with my own money. Never been handed anything. So,
Do you
except for
get discounts?
I do not. I mean, I do with Neptune now. I do with Neptune now because I'm a dealer, but I didn't
Okay.
before. Before I didn't. Now I admit that I get discounts because I'm a dealer.
Okay.
I applied to be a dealer. I have a dealer license. I have a sales tax license. I have a business. It's all legit. It's not like I called them and say, "Hey, I'm YouTube and I get a discount." No, I'm a dealer. So, you know. Um, anyway, we're talking a lot, and I think people are
All
getting
right.
bored.
All right. I'd be happy to be on again, man. Like we can talk some specifics next time.
Absolutely,
Tech
an
stuff.
hour isn't long, man.
All
Yeah,
right.
Jessica, I am a dealer, and Jessica, I did see you got some Neptune products, so that's awesome. I hope it works out for you. I really do. Jessica's had some issues with her tanks in the past, and it's nice to see she got some automation going now.
Okay.
Um, well, Oral, it was fun for guys that didn't realize we didn't have a giveaway today. It was a secret surprise, no giveaway. I don't know how we pulled that off. Unfortunately, I am broke, and I'll just be honest with you, I'm broke. Guys, buy more stuff on Reef Automation Net so I can buy some more giveaways, guys. Uh,
So
so
that I got it now. That's the goal of the website to make money for more giveaways. So that's
of
an incentive for
course,
people to buy their Neptune
it
stuff from you.
always
All
has
right.
all this, guys. All the super chats you guys give me, all of the money that goes towards this channel goes back to you guys. It always has since the beginning. I have a full-time job. I don't need the money. It has nothing to do with money. It never has been. So, um, but yeah, if I don't have money to support my channel, then I can't do this and I can't give away stuff. Hell, I gave away 2 Tridents. I've given away 3 Apexes. I've given away two. I've given away a GHL. I've given away a dose. I've given away. Where do you think all that money comes from, guys? Anyway,
Man,
I know
I,
I'm
I
spieling
never win
again.
anything. I never
I
win
know.
anything.
Anyway, guys, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it, Oral. This was a lot of fun, man. I really love having you on. I love your honesty and you're just like me, man. You just say it how it is. Everyone that watched today, thank you so much. I really appreciate the super chats and we got some new members, which was awesome to see too. So look forward to seeing you guys next week, and I guarantee we'll have Oral on again pretty soon because I want to continue
All
this
right.
chat. So
All right.
peace,
I'll see you
guys.
soon. Thanks for having me.